Today on Timescast, we focus on politics. First, an overview of top national races with 538's Nate Silver.
You are. Yes, sir.
We visit the hometown of Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid, who's fighting to hold on to his seat. California has a marijuana initiative on the ballot. How will it impact voter turnout? And a look at an upcoming Times poll. Has the Democratic base fallen apart?
Nate, we are less than a week away from the election, and everyone is expecting a Republican wave. How big a wave?
Well, in the House, it looks like it might even be a bit bigger than we had thought, where we finally got the projection up over 50 seats in our forecasts over the weekend. And since then, there have been a lot of basically good polls for Republicans coming in at the district level. It could wind up closer to 55, but there is a lot of uncertainty.
So we're looking at maybe a historical anomaly here, right? Where the House flips, but the Senate stays. So the question of why the House will flip, but the Senate won't, is that about the Democratic Senate candidates performing better than the Democratic House candidates, or is it just about the sheer number of seats that
I think it's mostly about the number of seats, right? Where if you had all 100 senators up for re-election this year, I would certainly expect Republicans to win a majority, and maybe even kind of a filibuster-proof majority, even a veto-proof majority.
And on the gubernatorial level, there's been a lot of talk about Congress, but I sort of feel like the governors are getting left out of this conversation a little bit, even though that has a long-term impact that maybe is more significant than Congress.
Well, in a couple of ways. I mean, number one, gubernatorial candidates are future senators and sometimes future presidents and presidential candidates, but also this is a redistricting year, which means that, a lot of House seats are up for grabs, especially in the Midwest, where you have states losing seats in Congress. It becomes kind of a game of musical chairs, which incumbent gets left out. Well, if you have a Republican governor in charge of that process, you can bet it's a Democratic incumbent who's going to be left hanging and have a difficult time with his redistricting. So, there might be a bonus with Republicans winning these governorships in the Midwest in particular that amounts to another 5 or 10 seats in the 2012 elections in the House.
In possibly the most important Senate race in the country, Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid is fighting for his Nevada Senate seat against Tea Party favorite Sharon Angle. Adam Nagurney visits Reid's hometown.
This is Adam Nagurney. We're here today at the Searchlight Nugget Casino and Cafe, a place about a half a mile from where Harry Reid lives. This is a small speck of a town, so a lot of people here know Harry Reid very, very well. But like the rest of Nevada, they are divided about whether they want him to return to Washington next January. Are people in Searchlight proud of having him from here?
They always have been.
Okay.
But now I don't know.
There's more Angle signs than there are Reid signs. I'm probably going to see the guy, after the election, but I don't wish him any harm. I just wish that he would get another job.
I want rid of all of them. So anybody that's an incumbent, I am not going to vote for.
As far as I know, he's doing all right, but trying to do something good, at least for the people in this area.
So Adam, you're in Searchlight, Nevada, home to our Senate Majority Leader, Harry Reid, who's in one of the tightest races in the country. So what's the sense there of what's going on?
I think this is as tight a race as we have going on in the country right now. Every poll shows it, for all intents and purposes, tied. I think that if you spoke to both campaigns, they'll tell you they do not know what's going to happen. The bottom line here is you have a competition between the Get Out the Vote operation that Senator Harry Reid has put together, this sort of Democratic organization, and the energy of the Tea Party and how strong that is behind Sharon Angle. And that just becomes very hard to measure until Election Day.
And Sharon Angle continues to raise lots of money and not talk to reporters. And Harry just seems to be campaigning a little more actively, right?
Yes, that's correct. Senator Reid is doing what we would consider more of a traditional campaign. He's traveling across the state. He's putting out press releases. He's doing occasional interviews. Sharon Angle is running a decidedly unconventional campaign. I mean, she doesn't really do public events. She keeps reporters out of her events, and she's communicating with her supporters, I think, through cable television, Fox News, very directed interviews, emails, and also television advertisements. It's a much different kind of campaign that she's running that we're used to.
So Adam, you're in Nevada right now, but you're the LA bureau chief, and I wanted to ask you about the Carly Fiorina-Barbara Boxer race for Senate in California. It looks like Barbara Boxer has picked up a pretty significant lead in the polling, but clearly Republicans think that Carly Fiorina has a chance because they're pouring a lot of money into that race.
California is a Democratic state. Barbara Boxer has never been a particularly popular politician in California. People just don't like her that much. It's a bad environment, as you know, for Democrats across the country. If the Republicans want to take over the Senate, it would really be helpful for them to knock out Barbara Boxer. And I think they see some vulnerability there. There's high negative ratings on her. So at this point, the Republican Party and its supporters have a lot of money, and they can afford to throw some money into California in hopes of knocking her out.
California's sort of famous for ballot initiatives and how they affect the vote. What's happening on the ballot there this time that might change who comes out?
Well, number one is there's an initiative that would legalize marijuana. The Democratic chairman at one point told me something to the effect of their best get out the vote operation is the marijuana initiative, because they think a lot of young voters and Democratic voters will come out, vote for this thing, and then vote for Barbara Boxer and also the Democratic candidate for Jerry Brown, which isn't irrational. If this thing passes, and I must say, Megan, that's a big if at this point, this state will effectively legalize marijuana. I mean, that's pretty intense, and there is a long history of what happens in California happening across the country afterwards. California tends to be a trendsetter in these kind of things. But it would also be, I think, a bit of a legal mess. The Department of Justice has made clear that it would continue to enforce federal statutes against marijuana possession and use. So God only knows what would happen if it actually passes.
Thank you.
And finally, a new Times poll shows significant changes to the Democratic base.
We've got our latest New York Times CBS News poll coming out tonight. We'll begin releasing some of the numbers at around 2 o'clock in the afternoon. It's our final poll before Election Day, and we've taken a look at some of the changes that the Democratic coalition, the coalition that was pieced together in 2006 and 2008, has undergone, and whether or not the coalition has hung together. We've seen some dramatic changes in the past month, particularly among women. So we'll take a look at all of that. We're also looking at some of the challenges as we move ahead for both the Republican Party and the Democratic Party.
Join us again tomorrow for Timescast.